What's up, guys? Well, welcome to today's live training. I am super pumped about this because I am all about what it takes to get a transformation without a nutrition or exercise plan. So that's what today's session is all about, is how you can actually make a transformation without an exercise or nutrition plan. There is a secret key ingredients that you need to really make that happen. So this is what we're going to cover today. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the core traits and skills that you need in order to be able to make a transformation without an exercise or nutrition plan. I know it sounds wild, but it can happen and it will happen. Okay. If you know these core traits and skills. Okay. What we're also going to cover is the big fundamental mistake that people make when they start their transformation journey. And this is really where all the problems really start. This is why so many people have started programs and have failed time and time and time again. So there's one big fundamental mistake that people make whenever they're starting their transformation journey. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay. All right, cool. So what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about the big fundamental mistake that people make. Okay. Now, oftentimes, I'll, as you guys know, I have people contact me all the time, say, I want to get information on the program and da, 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 da. And, I'll go through these conversations with them, whether it's conversations on the phone or it's conversations through text. Okay. So I always ask, okay, hey, so why don't you tell me, what do you feel your biggest struggles are? What do you feel like your issues are? And then I'll say, well, or I'll even ask the question, what do you feel you need in order to get to where you want to get? Right. So they'll say the same thing, like, oh, I feel like my big struggles are, I don't know what to eat, how much to eat, anything like that. Right. And I just need the right exercise plan and the right nutrition plan. And then they'll also say, well, I struggle with consistency. Okay. I'm like, okay, great. So what is it that you think you need in order to really get over the hump? And what they do is they say, well, I just need a nutrition plan and an exercise plan. Because if I had a nutrition and exercise plan and I knew what to do, I'm just going to do it. Okay. Now, we've talked a lot about having that mindset of, oh, if I know what to do, I'm just going to do it. In fact, that was one of our most common mistakes that people make when they're trying to do fat loss, right? Is they have that mindset of, oh, if I know what to do, I'm just going to do it. And as we all know, it's not that simple. So they basically told me they had three problems. Okay. So let's go back and review those three problems. They said they had a problem with their exercise plan, a problem with their nutrition plan, and a problem with their consistency plan. Okay. Cool. So they got those two problems. And I say, okay, what do you feel you need to solve those two problems? And they say, I need a nutrition plan and I need an exercise plan. But they leave out the consistency part. Okay. And they don't even say, well, I don't need the consistency. Like, if I know what to do, I'm just going to do it. Right. It's back to that mindset. Right. So really what people truly need, it's not just the nutrition plan and exercise plan. They need a plan, a consistency plan. They actually need that. So why is it that every single time we know we need an exercise plan, nutrition plan, and a consistency plan, that our solution is just those two other things? Okay. That's not what it is. If you just focused on one thing and consistency, and that's all you did, and you focus on consistency, you would get results. So the big fundamental problem is knowing that you have three issues, right? Well, we'll kind of make it simple. You have three issues. You have your exercise plan, your nutrition plan, and your consistency plan. But your solution has nothing to do with consistency, and it only covers two of those three things. Okay. And as you guys know, workout plans, exercise, nutrition plans, those things are a dime a dozen. You can go anywhere on the internet and you can go download a nutrition plan and a workout plan. And chances are you probably have already done that. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you probably have already, tried these plans, done it, failed time and time again, done it over and over and over again. Okay. So chances are you probably have already done that. Okay. And so we know that it's not just having the plan is what you need. It's really having the consistency. Okay. Now, the real answer here, or the real thing that you need to do to make a transformation without a workout plan or exercise plan is learn how to be consistent, right? Now, I understand it's really easy to say, I just need to be consistent. Okay. We're going to dive into consistency and all of that stuff. Okay. So let's talk about it. What do we really need to get consistent? Okay. So before I go on, do you agree with me? Okay. Do you agree with me that most of the time when people are trying to make a transformation, that they know that their problems are nutrition, exercise, and consistency, right? But they always settle on only doing nutrition and exercise, and they never get a plan that revolves around consistency. Okay. So if you are always leaving that out and you're always leaving a consistency plan out of your part of your solutions, you're going to continue to fail time and time again, unless you just accidentally get good at it. And then after you make the transformation, you realize, oh, I made the transformation because I was consistent. Okay. So most people aren't like that. Most people just aren't going to accidentally do the right thing. Okay. They need a plan to help them get there. Okay. All right. So I think I beat that point down enough. I think we all get it. Okay. We don't just need a workout plan and a nutrition plan. Okay. We need a consistency plan as well. We need to focus on getting consistent. And again, if you focus on getting consistent, okay, that is 85% of your problem. Okay. Most people that come into the program, okay, their major problem, the number one reason why people aren't making a transformation, it's because they're not consistent. The number one reason. Literally 90 to 95% of people who start with me or people who contact me after I have a conversation with them, it's all because they're not consistent. Okay. So yes, you need to put emphasis on looking for an exercise plan. Yes, you need to put emphasis on looking for a nutrition plan. Yes, those things are important. I'm not trying to say that they're not important. Okay. But probably far more important for you. Okay. And really what makes us so different is the fact that we focus on consistency. We actually have a plan to help you get consistent. Okay. In fact, consistency really comes down to two things. Okay. So like I said, it's really easy to say, hey, I just need to get consistent. Okay. It's really easy to say that. Okay. But really consistency comes down to two things. It comes down to having a right habit plan. Like, what do I actually have to do? Okay. And number two, really consistency lives in the mindset. Okay. It's really changing your perspective. It's changing your mindsets on what it actually means to be consistent. Okay. So for the sake of this program, this conversation today, we're going to focus mainly on the mindset section of it. Okay. So consistency, you really need two things. You need the habits and you need the right mindsets. Okay. Now our entire iFM coaching program is revolved around these four things. Okay. In fact, they're the four pillars of what we do. Okay. Yes, we do exercise. Yes, we do a nutrition plan, nutrition plans, and exercise plans. It's not just one standalone. You figure out how to do it forever. It's a multiple exercise plans and they change as you need to change it. It's multiple nutrition plans and we change it as we need to change it. It's multiple habit plans and we change it as we need to change it. And it's multiple mindset plans and we change it as we need to change it. So our entire iFM coaching program was built knowing that it's not just the exercise and nutrition plan that people struggle with, it's the consistency piece, right? And so that's why we added the habits and the mindsets into our program. And that's why our clients are always getting results. It's because we've kind of put that's our competitive advantage, is we know the habits and the mindsets that are going to lead to you becoming more consistent. And obviously the more consistent you are, especially if you're following a detailed exercise and nutrition plan, you're going to get the transformation that you want. Okay. So Andrea asked a really great question. She said, is there a specific time frame that equates to consistency, like a specific number or percentage? So consistency, and this is not part of this session, so I'm just going to go ahead and comment on this, but consistency to iFM coaching, okay, is really what you do over a 90-day time period. Okay. And that's really what we're looking at. Now you can shorten it down to 1 month, 2 months or whatever, but we actually have a phase that we take our clients through and it's called the consistency phase, right? So in the consistency phase, that is where we're trying to maintain a certain execution level of certain habits for 90 days. Okay. Because if you can hold that, you can, do, twice a week of exercise, or 3 times a week of exercise, and you've definitely done it, and you've held that over 90 days, then we can say that you are consistent. Right now, your goal might be to be consistent at 5 days a week, but week after week, month after month, you've only done 3 days a week. Okay. What we can say is you are not consistent at 5 days a week, but you are consistent at 3 days a week because we had that 90-day time frame of looking at it. Okay. As far as the execution rate, there are certain execution rates. So, for example, on the IFM coaching program, one of the things that we do is we track and monitor your habits. And there's very specific habits that we want. And each habit has its own specific execution rate of where we need you to be. And so usually we start at about 70%. So if you can be at 70% execution rate on these habits that we put down, then we know that you are consistent. We know that you're doing it. But again, that's just a number that we use. Truthfully, if you're consistent at 50% for 90 days, then you're at 50% consistency. And then we kind of have to look at that and say, okay, you're consistently at 50% execution rate for 90 days. Okay. So it really depends on how you want to look at it. But I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very specific example instead of giving you these broad range ones. Okay. So again, we go back to the 90-day. We want to see what you can be consistent at for 90 days. Okay. Now, let's just look at breakfast, for example. Okay. And let's say that we were tracking your breakfast and whether you were eating a healthy breakfast or if you were not eating a healthy breakfast. Okay. Ideally, we'd want you at about 70% execution rate and hold that over 90 days. So that means 70% of the time you are eating a healthy breakfast. Okay. That puts you in that first range of just being a healthy person because you're eating a healthy meal 70% of the time. Okay. Now, if you want to get results, okay, and you're really looking at, hey, I want to get results, I want to do the best I can, then we need that execution rate to be at 85% or above, and we need you to hold that for 90 days. Okay. So that 90-day mark is a really, really big time frame. Okay. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and start talking about the 5 core traits and skills that you must learn, okay, that you have to develop, okay, in order for you to transform without a nutrition and exercise program. Okay. Now, like I said, it's pretty easy to say, hey, just have the right habits, just have the right mindsets, right? It's really easy to say that. Okay. But we want to get a little bit more detailed. We don't want to just give you some generic stuff and say, oh, go do it. Okay. That's one of the problems that I'd say people have all the time. They just oversimplify their problem and they oversimplify a solution. Oh, I just need to have the right habits. Oh, I just need to have the right mindsets. Okay. We don't want to just do that. We actually want to tell you what that means. Okay. And again, for the sake of this particular session, we're going to go ahead and set aside the habits. Again, we already did a session before on healthy habits. So we're going to kind of just put those away. And what we're going to talk about more is on the mindset piece of it. Okay. Now the mindset piece is really where it involves these 5 core traits and skills that you need to learn. So mindsets is a lot of stuff. It's mindsets of having a particular mindset. It's having a change in perspective. It's also a little bit of education, a little bit of awareness. So the mindset is a lot of different things. Okay. So this would fit under the mindsets, right? So this is more of the core traits and skills that you need to learn. Okay. So there's 5 core traits and skills that you need to learn if you want to make a transformation without a nutrition and exercise program. Okay. And I'm going to go over them real fast. So number 1, self-discipline. We're going to get into detail of exactly what that is and what that means. Number 2, you need determination. Okay. It sounds so generic and so like, oh, you just need hard work and determination. Okay. Determination, but it's a real thing. You really need it. Okay. We use this in our program. And if we have time, I will go into a bonus section of how you can actually use a strategy with all 5 of these things. Okay. So number 3, trust and faith. Okay. You need to have both of these. Trust, faith kind of go hand in hand. Okay. So number 3, you need trust and faith. Number 4, you need to learn to develop resiliency. Okay. And number 5 might be my favorite one of all is you need to learn to practice grace with yourself. Okay. I know we've talked about some of these before. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into all of these 5 core traits and let's kind of put a little bit of little definition to these things. Okay. So let's talk about self-discipline really quick. So self-discipline is what actually gets you to do something day in and day out, regardless of how you feel, right? So when you have self-discipline, that means that you are doing it day in and day out regardless of how you feel, right? If you are self-disciplined at working out, you go to the gym whether you feel like it or not. Okay. If you are self-disciplined to eat right, you choose the healthy meal versus the non-healthy meal. Okay. If you have self-discipline, you will go grocery shopping and you will meal prep and you will make sure that you do that every single week. When you have self-discipline, it's you doing something day in and day out. And truthfully, that is the number one. The reason why it's number one is because that is the most important one that you must establish, because without self-discipline, you're just running all over the place. You're just trying and you're spinning your own wheels. You must develop self-discipline. Okay. Now, it's not one of these things where either you have it or you don't. Okay. We all have natural self-discipline in certain areas of our life. Okay. We all have it. Okay. Maybe because we enjoy it, maybe because we're good at it, maybe, we worked really hard at it or whatever it is. Okay. So we all have some natural self-discipline somewhere, but there's a lot of things that aren't natural to us, where we don't have self-discipline, but self-discipline can be built. It can be taught. You just have to take a step back, right? So like a lot of us, for example, like sports, for example, Wes can tell you this. He probably had the self-discipline to go practice, throwing a football, or to go practice, studying film or shoot a basketball or whatever. He was all state in 3 sports in high school. Like, what an amazing athlete. Must be nice. But he probably had just natural self-discipline because he was naturally good at certain things. So he just wanted to just keep doing it and keep getting better at it. Okay. So that's a great example of somebody who just has natural self-discipline in that particular thing because they're just naturally good at stuff. Okay. But self-discipline really you really need to learn and develop it when you're not good at something. Okay. So if you're not consistent at going to the workout, or you're still going to work out based on how you feel. Okay. You're still being driven by your emotions. Okay. Everything's done based on how you think and you feel. Okay. Then chances are you need to learn to develop self-discipline. And there's actually a path and a plan that you have to learn and develop it. Okay. So that's self-discipline. Okay. So everybody kind of probably gets that. Okay. Determination. Let's talk about that for a second. So determination is really just your desire to reach your goals. Okay. How bad do you want it? You've heard these things. How bad do I want it? Right. And it's just really like, I'm extremely determined. I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm willing to run through walls to make this happen. Okay. We know that we need that determination there of like, I'm just going to make this happen. I don't have a choice. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you a quick story of determination. And I'm actually going through this right now, me personally. Okay. So for years and years and years and years of my life, okay, I would eat really well. I would train really hard in the gym and do weights. But I would not do any cardio, because if I did cardio, I would start to eat away at my muscle. So I really wanted to focus on making sure that I maintained, my muscle mass, and I stayed relatively lean, right? So year round, this is from the age of like 20 years old, probably to about 34. Okay. So year round, I would be anywhere between 6 to 8% body fat. As I got older, it probably went like 8 to 10% body fat, but I was always walking around with a 6-pack, like all the time for 14 years of my life. Okay. And then after probably about 34, 35, my habits started to change. My lifestyle changed. My perspective on whatever I wanted to do changed. Right. I just, so many things changed. Right. And the body fat started to creep up. Okay. Now here I am at 42 years old, going on 43 years old. And I have a little bit more body fat than what I really want. Right now, it's a little bit of ego, and I'm okay with that. I still train 6 days a week and eat right and meal prep and do all that stuff. But a little bit of ego says, hey, I don't like, that I'm a little bit on the thicker side than what I normally used to be. Okay. So I had to talk with myself, and I was like, you know what? I cannot be that person anymore that doesn't do cardio. I can't be that person that just does very limited cardio here and there, or only does cardio when I'm getting ready for a show. If I want to stay relatively lean and be somewhere between 10 and 12% body fat year round, then I just have to accept that I have to do cardio every day. I hate cardio. I absolutely hate cardio. And what's crazy about it is when I do it, I love cardio. But for some reason, I have this mental block in my head where I absolutely hate cardio. right? I don't know. That doesn't even make sense. I hate cardio, but I love how I feel when I finish it, and I love doing it. Like, it's the weirdest thing. It's a weird phenomenon, right? Anyhow, point being is I am determined. I am absolutely determined. And I am at the very beginning phase of this. Okay. I am absolutely determined to be between 10 and 12% body fat year round. And the only way that that's going to happen is if I do my cardio every single day, anywhere between 5 to 7 days a week. Okay. That's the only way it's going to happen. I had to have that talk with myself. Okay. I've had ups and downs. I had back injuries. I had different things, but I am determined to be at 10 to 12% body fat year round. And so there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm just going to keep going. Okay. So that's just the really quick determination thing. All right, cool. So trust and faith. Okay. That's one of the other things that we talked about. Okay. You hear all the time, these people who made these transformations. Okay. They will always tell you, if you talk to any of my clients who have ever made a transformation, okay, whether it's a competitor client or a lifestyle client, they will all tell you the same thing. Trust the process. That's like the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Trust the process. Okay. It's really easy to say. Okay. It's really hard to practice. It's really hard to do it. Okay. So I say trust and faith because trust, they're very similar to each other, right? You got to have faith that if you follow the plan is going to work. You have to trust the person that's writing the plan for you. If it's you, you have to trust your process of how you created that. Okay. You just have to trust that it was designed to help you get results. So trust and faith is a very important piece of that. Okay. In fact, it's such an important piece that in our consistency phase, I was telling you about that earlier. One of the statements that we use, one of the rules, one of the laws, one of the commandments maybe that you say is trust in this statement. Okay. And I say it just like this: trust in this statement. If I do the right things will happen every time. You have to believe that to your core. If I do the right things, and the right things are what's on my plan. If I do the right things will happen every time. Okay. Now it makes sense, right? If I do this and I do this, it's going to equal this every time, right? So if A plus B always equals C, right? Then I just need to do A and B. Okay. The problem that we get into is we know A plus B equals C, but for some reason we start to overcomplicate it. Well, what if A plus B doesn't really equal C? What if A really isn't A? And what if B really isn't B? And then we get ourselves all confused. Then we're like, okay, maybe I just need to change it to C and D. And if I do that, maybe I'll get C. Like what? That you just reformulated everything. You didn't trust the process. You didn't have faith in your program. You didn't have faith in it. And you went and reformulated it, right? It happens all the time. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Resiliency. Okay. Resiliency is a lot like determination. Okay. But resiliency is more of when you get punched in the face and you fall down, you're resilient. Your ass is getting back up and you're going again. Okay. You are willing to just do it no matter what. You know it's going to be hard. You get knocked down, you keep going. Okay. You run into a rough patch with your workouts, but you keep going. Okay. You have a back injury like I just recently had, you figure it out. You keep going and you go no matter what. One bad thing can happen. It's not going to stop you. Okay. It's being resilient to make it happen no matter what. Okay. And then the fifth one to get a little more deep on that is grace. Okay. And like I said earlier, grace is probably my favorite one. Okay. It's my favorite one of all. Okay. Grace is just being understanding to your circumstances. Grace is accepting your imperfections. Okay. Grace is forgiving yourself for making a mistake or not following your plan. Okay. Now, I'll tell you what grace is not. Grace is not a justification. Okay. Grace is not meant to be used as an excuse. Okay. Grace is about forgiving yourself so you can move on. It's truly forgiving yourself till you move on. Okay. So there's a fine line of having grace and making a justification. And if you don't know the difference between having grace and making a justification, then chances are you probably need somebody to help you distinguish the difference. Okay. This is why so many people have therapists. Okay. People have therapists because a therapist can actually teach them the difference between grace and making an excuse, grace and justifying. Okay. So and that's why people hire coaches like us, because we can tell the difference between having grace on yourself and creating a justification or creating an excuse. Okay, so if you can't do that on your own, you don't know the difference between that, or you don't have that gauge, you don't have that awareness, then I definitely would suggest, man, you might want to consider looking at working with a therapist, or depending on where you are, working with a coach, so we can help you identify that, because that can easily be used the wrong way. Okay, so if you have these 5 things, okay, if you have the self-discipline, the determination, the trust and faith, the resiliency, and the grace on yourself, and forgive yourself to continue to move forward, okay, you can absolutely make a transformation without even having an exercise or nutrition plan. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you this, our entire mindset plan, I'm giving you our mindset plan. Okay. Our entire mindset plan. I told you, iFM coaching, it sits on 4 pillars. Our ability to write the nutrition plan that's exactly specific for you and know how and when to adjust it. Our ability to write the exact exercise plan that's specific to you, knowing exactly how and when to adjust it. The habit plan that's designed specifically for you, for your goals, how and when to adjust it. Okay. And the mindset plan and how it fits for you and how and when to adjust it. Right. So our IFM coaching program sits on these 4 pillars. Okay. Now, if we were just take that one pillar out and we were just to look at the mindset part of it. Okay. That mindset is learning these 5 core traits and skills, learning self-discipline, learning determination, learning trust and faith, learning resiliency, and learning grace. This is literally what we teach every single one of our clients, almost at every single session. Every single session we have with our clients, I promise you, we work on at least one of these things. Okay. In our program, the way it's set up, it's designed to set up for you to accumulate all of these things without even knowing that you're working on these things. Okay. So as we design the program, and it's this really huge formulated thing to help you build these things. So if you just follow the plan and you just do the things that we tell you, you will develop self-discipline, determination, trust and faith, resiliency, and grace without even realizing you're doing it. Okay. So these are the 5 things that we're working on. Okay. All right, cool. So I do want to get into the bonus section of it. And before we get into the bonus section is the strategy. Like, how do we actually use these, and how do we create a strategy to use all 5 of these things so you can make a transformation without needing a nutrition or exercise plan? Okay. So before we get into the strategy, I want to kind of hear from you. Okay. How many of these 5 core traits have you struggled with? Okay. It could be all of them. It could be 1. It could be 2. Okay. Or what is the one that you struggle with the most? Okay. So I want to hear it from you. Okay. Also, if you've made the transformation and you've kept it off, which of these 5 core traits and skills would you say has been the most impactful for you? Let's go ahead and get into the bonus section. And in this bonus section, we're going to talk about how to use these 5 core traits. Okay. And kind of the importance of when you really need to put emphasis on these things. Okay. Now, we did a session recently talking about the journey that you're going to take in your transformation program. Okay. Now, we're going to use that same process. Okay. And I was very creative with these names. Okay. So every person that goes on a transformation journey, okay, they are going to go through these 3 basic phases. Okay. You're going to go through what we call, I don't even know the names of it. I'll get tricky with the names, but you're going to go through a beginning phase, right? When you're just starting, you're going to go through the middle phase, and then you're going to go through the end phase. Okay. So beginning, middle, and end. Okay. And they're all just a little bit different. The beginning phase, you're just starting off. Everything's tough. Everything's hard. You want to make the transformation, but you're motivated. You're ready to get started. It might be January. Okay. But you haven't really developed any habits yet. You don't really have any skills yet. You're just kind of raw. Okay. But you're motivated. Okay. And you feel that fire inside of you. That's the beginning phase. Okay. That's also when you're going to have to really shift a lot of stuff around. And we'll talk about that here in a second. So there's some challenges, there's some good things and some bad things about that beginning phase. Okay. Then there's that middle phase. And in that middle phase, that's kind of like, I use this analogy. Imagine yourself, you're starting your journey, and you know that, hey, my goal is to run to the castle. Okay. But between you and the castle is a huge forest. okay, where Robin Hood lives. Okay. So there's a huge forest, right? But right now you're starting off and you can see the castle and you can see it's on the top of that mountaintop and you can see it, but you know that you have to go through those trees and through that forest in order to get to the castle. So you're so excited. You can see the end. You're like, okay, cool. Let's go do it. That's the beginning phase. You're starting. Boom, boom, boom. You get going. Okay. Then you get into the forest and you're still in the beginning phase. Then you get into the middle of the forest. And now you're in the middle phase. And in the middle of that forest, you look to your left, you see trees. You look to the right, you see trees. You look in front of you, you see trees. You see behind you, you see trees. And everywhere you look, you see trees. You can't even feel the motivation that you had at the beginning. You can't even see the goal that you originally created at the very end. Okay. So in this phase, this is when you're going to lose the motivation. This is when you're not going to be able to see the end in sight. Okay. So that's what happens in the middle phase. Okay. In the end phase, okay, this is when you kind of get out of that forest. Now you see the castle. Now you see it. It's at the top of a hill. Okay. But it's far and you see it and you're tired and you're thirsty and you're hungry and you're ready to stop and your feet are hurting. Okay. You're tired of running. Okay. So that's the end phase. There's going to be all kinds of things that happen in that phase. Okay. So in that phase, that's where you start to feel really extreme feelings. That's where you have the most extreme feelings of wanting to quit. Okay. When you get closer and closer to your goal, sometimes people get more motivated the closer they get to their goals. Sometimes people get more discouraged because they're thinking every single moment, every single day. But really what happens is you start to go through these ups and downs. One minute you're like, all right, I got it. The next minute you feel like you're going to fail. You feel like you're never going to make it. Right. And you're literally on a minute basis, your mindset changes. One minute you're motivated. The next minute you feel like you're never going to make it. The next minute you're motivated. The next minute you're never going to make it. You keep getting punched in the face over and over again. Maybe you're going up that hill and you slip on some gravel and you fall down and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't be falling at this point. I shouldn't be falling down. I shouldn't be having slip ups. I should be really good at this point because I've been running all the way from the other side of the forest. I should be really good, right? And that's where your mindset really starts to play. So it gets really, really challenging towards the end because the end, you have to power through so many different things. Okay. So that's the beginning, middle, and end phase. Okay. So I needed to kind of explain that because we're going to use that same structure on how you're going to do it. So here's the strategy. Okay. Let's talk about the strategy for a second. So the strategy is when you get in the beginning phase, okay, what you need to do and really focus on, okay, there's two things that if you focused on these two things in the beginning phase, okay, you're going to make it out. Okay. And that's learning to build self-discipline. Okay. It's not saying have it. It's not saying either you have it or you don't. You learn to build it. Okay. So in the beginning phase, when you're first starting your transformation journey, focus on building self-discipline. Okay. Don't make it right or wrong. Okay. Don't make it, oh, I have it or I don't have it, or I did it or I didn't do it. Okay. Focus on building, focus on progress, not perfection. Okay. So build your self-discipline. Okay. And have grace. Have grace on yourself. Be forgiving to yourself. Be understanding to your circumstances. Know that you're just starting out. You don't have these skills yet. You haven't developed this stuff yet. Okay. I know you think you should have it, but whether you think you should or whether you think you shouldn't have it or whatnot, the fact is you don't have these skills yet. So be forgiving and understanding to yourself. Okay. If you had a child and your child was first learning how to play basketball and they were learning how to dribble, okay, you're not going to berate them. You're not going to make them feel like the worst kid on the planet when they can't dribble after 5 minutes of practicing. Or if they're 5 years old and it's the first year that they learn to play basketball, you're not going to berate them because they can't shoot a three-pointer, right? You have grace on your child. You're like, hey, it's okay. You're going to get better. You're only 5 years old. You'll learn how to play. Okay. You'll learn how to dribble. You'll learn how to do these things. Okay. You don't even know how to spell your name yet, but you'll learn how to play basketball. Right. So like you have grace on them. Well, truthfully, you are almost like a child in the sense of making your transformation if you've never made it. You have to be okay that you're going to be raw. Okay. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard. You're going to have things that come up. You may have kids. You may have real life things that happened. It's all okay. But learn to build self discipline and learn to have grace on yourself. And if you can just continue to do that in that first phase, okay, you will be able to get out of that first phase and go into the second phase. Okay. I told this story the other day that somebody asked me the other day, hey, Aaron, how long do your clients normally last with you? And I said, well, they either last less than 30 days or they last a full year. They're like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But it's because most people can never get out of the beginning phase because they're too hard on themselves. They're have that too much of a perfectionist mindset. And they beat themselves up to a pulp saying, oh, I should be better than this. And they never, ever develop self-discipline. They never learn to build it. Okay. And they don't practice any grace on themselves. So they never get out of that first phase. Okay. So if you can do those two things, you'll get out of that first phase and you'll go into the second phase of the middle phase, right? Now, you still have to have determination. You still have to have trust. Okay. You still have to be a little bit resilient, but really building self-discipline and having grace are the two things that you need in that beginning phase. Okay. Now, in the middle phase, this is why it's so important to build your self-discipline, because in the middle phase, what you're doing is you're relying on the self-discipline that you built. Okay. You're relying on everything that you built. Okay. You're not trying to improve it anymore. Now, you can still try to focus on improving it little by little here and there, but really you are relying on the self-discipline that you built in that first phase. And you are relying on the grace that you've given yourself, right? And so you're continuing to practice grace, I should say, right? So you're relying on those first two things that you built there, okay? And you kind of just want to set those things on autopilot, okay? Do your self-discipline, rely on the self-discipline that you built, and continue to practice grace on yourself, right? You just kind of go back and forth with that, okay? But this is where trust and faith comes in. Your trust and faith have to be at an all-time high, okay? Think about this. You're in that middle of that forest, okay? In the middle phase. You can't see the end anymore. You see nothing but trees, okay? You have to have trust and faith that the path that you're on is going to get you to that castle, okay? You have to have trust and faith, because if you don't have trust and faith, you will start going to the right. You will start going to the left. You will get off that path, okay? So you need to rely on your self-discipline and continue to practice your grace, but your trust and your faith have to be at an all-time high. If you don't trust the person that wrote your program, if you don't trust the process that you went through to write your own program, okay? If you don't trust that, if you don't have faith that the coaches that you're working with are actually there to help you, okay, then yes, you're going to lose trust and you will never go to the next phase. Okay. You have to have trust, and it has to be at an all-time high in the middle phase. Okay. Now, again, still need to have a little bit of resiliency. You still need to be determined. Okay. But you need to rely on your self-discipline, continue practicing grace, but your faith and your trust have to be at an all-time high. Okay. Now, if you continue to do that, you will get to the end phase. Okay. And like I said, in the end phase, that's when all kinds of crazy things start happening. You can see the end, but it feels like it's even longer than what you saw at the very beginning. Okay. You can see the castle. Okay. But now the mountaintop seems more steep than what it looked like at the beginning. Okay. Maybe the road is rougher. Okay. Maybe you have to go zigzags, whatever, but it becomes way tougher. But what comes tougher more than anything is the mindset part of it. Okay. So in the end phase, this is when you need to continue to coast with your self-discipline. Okay. Yes, you can increase it a little bit. Okay. You can increase your self-discipline. Maybe you go to the gym one more day a week. Maybe you go to the gym 2 more days a week. Okay. But really, you're trying to still rely on that self-discipline that you built in that first phase. Okay. But here's the thing, you're coasting with your self-discipline, maybe improving by 1% or something. Okay. But your grace has to be at an all-time high. You got to be okay with knowing that you're going to want to quit. You got to be okay with knowing that you're going to have thoughts that you want to quit. You're going to have thoughts that you're a failure. You're going to have thoughts that you're on the wrong path. You're going to have thoughts that maybe you don't want to be at the castle after all. Okay. And you're going to question everything that you did. Okay. So your grace has to be at an all-time high when you're in this end phase. Okay. Your trust has to be at an all-time high, okay? Because you have to know, look, I'm trusting this. We wrote this plan. We did this for a reason. My coach did this for me. Or when I sat down and I wasn't emotional and I wasn't in the middle of it, I wrote this plan and I knew it was going to work, right? So just your trust has to be an all-time high, that if you continue to go, you will see that castle. You will see that those results that you want. You will see that transformation. Your resiliency has to be at an all-time high. Okay. You are going to get punched in the face. I don't know how many times throughout this end phase. You are going to fall down. I don't know how many times through the end phase. You start to demand perfection out of yourself, which is okay, right? You demand that, but life's gonna throw you a curveball, and it's gonna get you, and you're gonna fall. Okay. And that's when you're gonna want to quit, when you have those mishaps. But your resiliency has to be at an all-time high, and your determination has to be at an all-time high in that end phase. Okay. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and tell you all of this stuff. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to go through. Okay. But if you do these things, okay, if you have self-discipline, if you have determination, if you have grace on yourself, if you have resiliency, and if you have trust and faith, you can make a transformation without ever following a nutrition and exercise plan. Okay. So if we go back to the very beginning of this whole thing, the big fundamental mistake is that people know that they're not consistent enough. They know they need a workout plan, nutrition plan, but they know that they're not consistent enough, right? So if you had a plan, a nutrition plan, an exercise plan, and a plan that would help you get consistent, that is all that you need. In fact, I would argue that if all you did was focus on consistency and not even worried about a plan, you will get results. Grace, determination, trust and faith, self-discipline, resiliency. Those are the things that you need in order to make a transformation without ever needing a nutrition and exercise plan. Guys, that's going to wrap up today's session. If you have any questions, if you would like to talk about how you can make your transformation and you just want to have a conversation with a real professional, go to ifmcoaching.online, fill out the coaching form. Let's go ahead and set up a call. Let's set up a time to talk, and let's go through your struggles. Let's go through your problems, and let's figure out what you need to do in order to take your transformation to that next step. Guys, it's been awesome. I'll see you next time.